Imagine you are the most powerful man on earth, an emperor commanding armies, ruling over millions of people, and yet almost nobody around you actually respects you. They smile to your face and mock you behind your back. Your own family schemes against you. Soldiers you trusted plot rebellions, and the people you try to help spit on your kindness. This was not a hypothetical. This was the actual life of Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, and one of the most disrespected men to ever hold that much power. And yet, somehow, he never lost his sense of who he was. Today we are going to talk about something almost everyone struggles with at some point. How do you keep your self-respect when the people around you refuse to give you any? How do you stay whole, stay dignified, stay sane, when it feels like the entire world has decided you don't matter? Marcus Aurelius figured this out 2,000 years ago, and honestly, his answer is more relevant today than ever. So stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to have a completely different way of handling the people in your life who make you feel small. Let's set the scene first, because most people think being Emperor of Rome meant endless admiration and worship. It did not. Marcus Aurelius spent almost his entire reign fighting wars he did not want, dealing with plagues that killed his own children, and surrounded by senators who whispered insults about him the moment he left the room. His own brother in rule, Lucius Verus, undermined him constantly. Generals he elevated turned around and declared themselves emperor instead. Even his wife, Faustina, was the subject of vicious rumors and betrayal that Marcus had to quietly absorb in silence, because reacting publicly would have made him look weak. Can you imagine that? Being the single most powerful person in the known world, and still feeling like nobody actually respected you as a human being, just as a title, just as a target, just as someone to manipulate. Here's the thing though, Marcus never wrote about revenge. He never wrote about proving people wrong. He never wrote about needing validation from any of them. Instead, in his private journal, the one we now call Meditations, which by the way he never intended anyone else to read, he kept coming back to one simple, powerful idea. Your worth does not come from other people's opinions of you. Let that sink in for a second, because I think this is where most of us go wrong. We unconsciously treat respect like it's a resource other people control, like we need them to hand it to us before we're allowed to feel good about ourselves. But Marcus flipped that completely. He believed that self-respect had to come from your own actions, your own integrity, your own choices, not from applause, not from approval, and definitely not from the opinions of people who don't even know who you really are. There's a passage in Meditations where Marcus reminds himself, quote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't some abstract philosophy for him. This was survival. When you're disrespected constantly, when people undermine you, mock you, dismiss you, it is incredibly tempting to internalize that, to start believing maybe they're right. Maybe I really am not worth much. Marcus refused to let outside noise dictate his inner reality. He separated the two. What people think of me, that's their business. What I think of myself, based on how I act, that's mine. Now here's something interesting. Marcus didn't ignore disrespect by pretending it didn't happen or by becoming cold and distant. That's actually a common misunderstanding of Stoicism. People think it means suppressing emotion, becoming a robot. Marcus felt everything. The sting of betrayal, the exhaustion of being underestimated, the loneliness of leadership. He wrote about these feelings honestly in his journal. But feeling something and being controlled by it are two very different things. He allowed himself to notice the disrespect, to feel the sting, and then he asked himself a crucial question. Does this change who I choose to be? And that question, does this change who I choose to be, might be the single most powerful tool for self-respect that exists. Because disrespect from others only damages you long-term if it actually changes your behavior, if it makes you smaller, meaner, more bitter, more desperate for approval. But if you can feel the sting and still choose to act with integrity, still choose kindness, still choose discipline, still choose to show up as the person you actually want to be, then their disrespect has zero power over your character. It becomes noise. Loud, uncomfortable noise, but just noise. I want you to think about this for a second in your own life. Think about someone who doesn't respect you right now, maybe a coworker who talks over you in meetings, maybe a family member who dismisses your opinions, maybe an ex who tries to make you feel small, maybe even strangers online leaving cruel comments. Here's the uncomfortable truth Marcus would want you to sit with. Their disrespect says everything about them and almost nothing about your actual worth. People treat others based on their own internal state, their insecurities, their fears, their unresolved anger. Someone who is genuinely secure and at peace rarely feels the need to belittle others. This is a good moment to pause and remind you. If this message is resonating with you at all, if you've ever felt disrespected and wondered how to hold on to your dignity, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel grow so we can keep making videos like this. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because we dive into Stoic wisdom like this every single week. Real practical philosophy you can actually use in your daily life, not just abstract theory. Marcus had a much deeper system for handling this. One of the most powerful techniques Marcus used was something modern psychologists would now call cognitive reframing, but he called it simply changing your judgment. He wrote that it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those events. So when someone disrespects you, the disrespect itself is just an event. It's neutral. It's the judgment you place on top of it. I am worthless. I don't matter. I should be ashamed. That's where the real suffering comes from. Marcus trained himself to catch that automatic judgment and question it immediately. Is it actually true that I am worthless because this person was rude to me? Or is that just an old, automatic story my mind is telling itself? Here's a practical way to use this in your own life. The next time someone disrespects you, whether it's a snide comment, being ignored, or being talked down to, pause for just a moment before reacting. Ask yourself Marcus's question, what judgment am I about to attach to this event? And is that judgment actually accurate, or is it just fear-talking? This tiny pause creates space between what happens to you and how you respond. And in that space is where your self-respect actually lives. Another key part of Marcus's philosophy was understanding the nature of the people who disrespect you, without becoming cynical or bitter about it. He wrote extensively about starting each morning by reminding himself that he would encounter difficult, rude, ungrateful people that day, and instead of being surprised or offended by it, he prepared for it mentally in advance. This isn't pessimism, it's wisdom. When you expect that some people will be difficult, their behavior stops feeling like a personal attack and starts feeling like weather. Sometimes it rains. It's not raining on you specifically, it's just raining. Marcus also believed deeply in something we don't talk about enough today: dignity through action, not through argument. He rarely wasted energy trying to convince people to respect him. He didn't need to defend himself constantly or prove his worth through debate. Instead, he let his consistent actions speak for him over time. He showed up, day after day, doing what he believed was right, treating people fairly even when they didn't deserve it, making difficult decisions with integrity even when unpopular. This is powerful because arguing for respect rarely works. People who are determined not to respect you will find a way to dismiss anything you say, but they cannot dismiss years of consistent character. There's one more piece of this puzzle that I think is the most emotionally powerful part of Marcus's philosophy. He believed that maintaining your own dignity, even toward people who disrespect you, was actually a gift you give yourself, not them. When you refuse to become cruel in response to cruelty, when you refuse to shrink yourself just because someone else tried to make you feel small, you are protecting something incredibly valuable: your own character. Marcus wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Not revenge through payback, but revenge through refusing to become bitter, refusing to become someone you wouldn't respect yourself. So let's bring this all together. If people around you don't respect you right now, whether it's at work, in your family, in a relationship, or even online, here's what Marcus Aurelius would want you to remember. Your worth was never actually theirs to give or take away in the first place. Feel the sting of disrespect. It's human. Don't suppress it, but don't let it dictate who you become. Question the automatic judgments your mind attaches to their behavior. Expect that some people will be difficult and stop taking it so personally. And most importantly, let your consistent actions, your integrity, your character speak for you over time, instead of exhausting yourself trying to convince people to see your worth. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire filled with people who doubted him, mocked him, and betrayed him. And yet centuries later, we still study his wisdom. We still read his private thoughts. We still respect him more than almost any of the people who disrespected him in his own time. That should tell you something powerful. The respect that actually lasts, the respect that actually matters, is never really about convincing others. It's about becoming someone worthy of your own respect first. If this video helped you see disrespect a little differently, let me know in the comments. Tell me about a time you kept your dignity even when someone tried to take it from you. I read every single comment, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today.
Everyone thinks Stoicism is about being a robot, about feeling nothing. But that couldn't be further from the truth. If you've ever found yourself thinking that being stoic means you suck it up, swallow your emotions, and pretend like nothing bothers you, then you're about to have your mind blown. Because what if I told you that the real power of Stoicism isn't in ignoring pain, but in transforming it into something incredibly powerful? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of this ancient philosophy and discover why its true aim isn't to erase your feelings, but to give you an unparalleled strength in the face of life's toughest moments. This isn't about numbing yourself. It's about unlocking a kind of inner freedom that most people don't even know exists. For a long time, Stoicism has had a pretty bad rap. When you hear someone say, "Be more stoic," what usually comes to mind? Probably a picture of a stone-faced person, completely unmoved by anything, almost cold, right? Like someone who hears bad news and shrugs, or goes through heartbreak and carries on without a tear. We often think of it as emotional suppression, a way to build a wall around yourself so you don't feel anything. This idea that Stoicism means being detached and unfeeling is a massive misunderstanding. It's like looking at a beautifully crafted wooden table and thinking its purpose is to be firewood. You're missing the entire point. Stoicism isn't about turning off your emotions or wishing away your pain. It doesn't offer a magic pill to make all your worries disappear. Instead, it offers something far more profound and enduring. It's a philosophy that equips you with the wisdom to navigate pain, grief, and hardship, not by denying them, but by giving you the power to choose how you respond to them. It's about building an internal fortress, not of stone, but of understanding and resilience. At the very heart of Stoicism lies a concept that once you really grasp it, can change your life. It's called the dichotomy of control. Sounds fancy, but it's actually super simple and incredibly powerful. Think of it like this. There are two big buckets in life. In one bucket, you put everything you cannot control. In the other bucket, you put everything you can control. Most of us spend an incredible amount of energy, worry, and time trying to wrestle with things in the cannot control bucket. We worry about the weather, about what other people think of us, about the economy, about traffic, about our health declining as we age, about whether our favorite team will win. We get upset when we lose a job, or a loved one, or when betrayal strikes us down. We can't control these external events. They happen to us. A job layoff, a sudden illness, a friend who lets you down, even the inevitable fact of death. These things are not up to us. They are facts of life, part of the human experience. And the Stoics knew this intimately. They understood that trying to control the uncontrollable is a fast track to frustration, anger, and deep suffering. But then there's the other bucket, the things you absolutely control. And this is where the Stoic secret weapon comes in. What are these things? They are your judgments, your attitudes, and your actions. That's it. Everything else is outside your direct control. You can't control what happens, but you have ultimate power over how you interpret what happens, how you feel about it, your attitude, and what you do next, your actions. Imagine you're caught in a sudden downpour without an umbrella. You can't stop the rain. But you can choose to curse the sky, stomp your feet, and ruin your day. Or you can choose to laugh, embrace the refreshing splash, and maybe even find shelter with a smile. The rain is the external event. Your reaction is what's up to you. This distinction helps us understand the difference between pain and suffering. Pain, whether it's a physical ache or the sting of a broken heart, is an inevitable fact of life. You stub your toe, it hurts. You lose someone dear. Your heart aches. These are natural, unavoidable pains. Suffering, however, is different. Suffering isn't just the pain itself. It's our resistance to the pain. It's the story we tell ourselves about the pain. It's the belief that things should be different, that this shouldn't be happening to me. It's seeing yourself as a helpless victim rather than someone who can respond. It's convincing yourself that this discomfort, this difficulty, is absolutely unbearable and will break you. The Stoics recognize that while pain is unavoidable, much of our suffering is optional. It comes from how we choose to engage with our pain, not from the pain itself. So, how do we put this wisdom into practice? One of the most powerful Stoic tools is something called Premeditatio Malorum, which roughly translates to the premeditation of evils. Don't let the scary name fool you. It's not about being a pessimist or dwelling on bad things. It's about mentally preparing for potential losses and challenges before they happen. It's like a mental fire drill. Imagine you have a job you love. A Stoic might occasionally sit down and think, what if I lost this job? What would that mean? How would I respond? Or, if you're deeply in love, you might ponder, what if this relationship ended? How would I navigate that grief? Perhaps even contemplating your own mortality, not in a morbid way, but in a way that helps you appreciate the present. This isn't to make you sad. It's to build resilience. By considering these difficult scenarios in advance, you're not caught completely off guard when hardship inevitably arrives. You've already done some of the emotional heavy lifting. This practice doesn't numb you to potential pain. It actually strengthens you. It ensures that when a real challenge hits, you meet it with composure and thoughtfulness, rather than being overwhelmed by shock and panic. It allows you to think clearly when emotions might otherwise cloud your judgment. The ancient philosopher Epictetus, a former slave who became a profound Stoic teacher, put it best. It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. This isn't just a catchy phrase. It's the cornerstone of Stoic living. It means that the power isn't in escaping life's difficulties, but in choosing your response. You can't control the hand you're dealt, but you absolutely control how you play it. You know, this ancient wisdom isn't just dusty old philosophy. It echoes powerfully in modern psychology. If you've ever heard of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, you'll find striking similarities. CBT is a widely used and highly effective therapy that helps people identify and change negative thinking patterns that are causing them distress. What does it do? It helps you reframe your thoughts and perceptions about difficult situations. This cognitive reframing is a cornerstone of Stoicism. The Stoics were essentially practicing CBT thousands of years before it had a name. They understood that our interpretations of events, not the events themselves, are what cause us most of our emotional turmoil. This means Stoicism doesn't erase pain, but it absolutely diminishes the power of pain to paralyze you. It's like a strong current in a river. The current is still there, but you learn how to swim with it or navigate around it instead of being swept away. Let's talk about loss, because this is where the cold Stoic misconception really falls apart. When a Stoic loses a loved one, do they just shrug and move on without a tear? Absolutely not. A Stoic grieves sincerely. They allow themselves to feel the profound sadness, the emptiness, the ache that comes with such a significant loss. They do not deny the reality of that pain. That would be denying reality itself, which is very un-Stoic. But here's the difference. While they feel the pain, they don't allow themselves to be utterly consumed by suffering. They understand that while the loss is immense, there's nothing they can do to change it. So, their focus shifts. They practice gratitude for the time shared, for the memories created, for the lessons learned from that person. They accept what cannot be changed and focus on what can be done. This approach isn't detachment. It's a deep, courageous engagement with reality. It's about loving profoundly, experiencing loss authentically, and still finding the strength to carry on, to live a virtuous life in their honor. Think of it like this. When a beautiful vase breaks, you can mourn its loss, but you can also appreciate the beauty it brought to your life and understand that all things are impermanent. You don't try to deny it broke. You acknowledge the break, feel the sadness, and then choose how to move forward with that truth. This brings us to what I believe is the ultimate gift of Stoicism, prohereses. Another big word, but it just means reasoned choice or moral purpose. It's your inner guiding faculty, your capacity to choose your response to life. It's your internal CEO, the part of you that decides. And in moments of pain, this capacity is everything. When everything else feels like it's crumbling, your proheresis remains untouched. It's the part of you that asks, what is mine to do here? Given what has happened, what is the right and virtuous way for me to respond? This isn't about escaping the pain. It's about meeting it head on. It's about facing adversity with courage, with integrity, and with presence. Instead of letting pain dictate your actions and overwhelm your mind, you become the one in charge. You choose to engage with the pain, to learn from it, to grow through it. The pain itself might still be there, a dull ache or a sharp sting, but you are no longer its victim. You become the one who decides its meaning. You decide whether this pain will break you or make you stronger. You decide if it will lead to despair or to a deeper understanding of yourself and the world. Ultimately, Stoicism doesn't offer you a life free from pain or suffering. That's simply not possible in the human experience. What it offers is something far more powerful, a life in which suffering, instead of leading to defeat, becomes a catalyst for profound growth. It arms you with the tools to navigate life's inevitable storms, not by wishing them away, but by becoming an unshakable captain of your own ship. It frees you from being tossed about by external events and anchors you to your own inner strength, giving you the power to choose how you live, no matter what comes your way. If you want to understand more about these ancient ideas, click on the video appearing on your screen right now.
There's a moment in life when everything you thought you knew about control falls apart. You lose a job, a relationship ends, a plan you've worked on for years suddenly collapses. And in that chaos, you ask yourself, how do I stay calm when the world is on fire? That question led me to Stoic philosophy, and honestly, it changed everything for me. When most people hear Stoicism, they imagine cold detachment or people suppressing emotions. But the truth is, Stoicism is the complete opposite. It's not about feeling less, it's about feeling wisely. It's about mastering your reactions so you can move through life with strength, clarity, and peace. 3 Stoic lessons completely reshaped the way I live. They didn't just give me new ideas, they gave me a new way of being. The first lesson: you can't control events, only your response to them. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When I first heard that, it sounded cliché, but then I started to really apply it. Every time something went wrong, someone criticized me, a plan failed, or I got bad news, I noticed how quickly I'd spiral into frustration. I'd think, why is this happening to me? But Stoicism taught me to flip that question into, what can I control right now? Because in almost every situation, the answer is the same: my thoughts, my choices, my attitude. That's it. Everything else is just noise. When you start living like that, something powerful happens. You stop being a victim of circumstance. You stop letting life drag you around like a leaf in the wind. You realize that your peace is your responsibility. Not your boss's, not your partner's, not the government's, yours. One day, I remember standing in a long line at the airport. Everyone was sighing, complaining, and checking their watches. And for a second, I felt the same irritation bubbling up. Then I caught myself. I thought, can I control the line? No. Can I control how I stand here? Yes. So I relaxed my shoulders, took a breath, and smiled at the person in front of me. That one decision turned waiting into peace. That's the power of Stoicism. It gives you back ownership of your inner state. The second lesson that changed me: you suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca wrote that centuries ago, but it feels like he was talking directly about the modern world. How much of your anxiety comes from things that haven't even happened? We live in our heads so much that we end up fighting imaginary battles. For me, this hit hard. I used to spend days worrying about what people thought of me, how projects might fail, and how future problems could unfold. 90% of the time, those fears never became real. I was living in mental chaos. I had built myself. The Stoics called this the art of distinguishing between what is and what might be. The present moment is usually simple. It's our thoughts that make it complicated. So when I'd catch myself spiraling into what-ifs, I'd pause and ask, is this real right now? Or is this a story I'm telling myself? That question alone has saved me from countless hours of unnecessary worry. Imagine if you could remove all that imagined suffering. How much lighter would you feel? Most of our stress doesn't come from reality, but from our resistance to it. Stoicism teaches you to meet life as it is, not as you wish it would be. I remember one night, lying awake at 2 a.m., replaying a mistake I made at work. I couldn't stop thinking about what my boss might say. Then I remembered Seneca's words, We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. I took a deep breath, thought, right now, in this moment, I'm just lying in bed. The rest is a story. And slowly, the fear dissolved. That's what Stoicism does. It brings you back to the truth of the present moment. The third lesson, and maybe the most profound one, memento mori, remember that you will die. At first, this idea sounds dark, even morbid. Why would anyone want to think about death? But for the Stoics, it wasn't about fear, it was about clarity. They saw death as the ultimate teacher. When you really remember that your time is limited, you stop wasting it. You stop arguing about things that don't matter. You stop delaying the things that do. Memento mori doesn't make life sad. It makes it sacred. I started using this idea in small ways. Every morning, I'd remind myself, I might not have this day again. Not in a depressing way, but as a spark to live fully. When you carry that awareness, you start noticing life's details again. The sound of rain, the way light hits a wall, the way someone's laughter makes you feel. You stop scrolling aimlessly, and you start paying attention. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That line changed how I spend my time. It reminded me that I don't have endless tomorrows. None of us does. Death isn't the opposite of life. It's what gives life its shape. If you lived forever, nothing would feel urgent, nothing would matter. But because it ends, everything matters. When I started to really absorb that, my priorities shifted. I began letting go of grudges faster. I started speaking the truth more often. I became more grateful for the smallest things. Every day started to feel like borrowed time, and that made it beautiful. When you remember death, you remember life. You realize how fragile everything is, and yet how precious. The morning coffee, the sound of the wind, the voice of someone you love, none of it is guaranteed. And when you stop taking it for granted, you start living differently. Memento mori became more than a phrase for me. It became a quiet compass. Whenever I found myself complaining, hesitating, or avoiding something important, I'd remind myself, one day, I won't have the chance to do this. Suddenly, sending that message, forgiving that person, or taking that leap didn't feel so scary. It felt necessary. Stoicism doesn't numb you, it wakes you up. It strips away the illusions that make you waste your time. It shows you what's real and what's worth caring about. And in a world full of distractions, that's revolutionary. These 3 lessons: control what you can, don't suffer imaginary pain, and remember death, became the foundation for how I live my life. But what surprised me most was how practical they are. Stoicism isn't just philosophy for scholars. It's a manual for living. Whenever something goes wrong now, I don't panic the way I used to. I try to zoom out to see the bigger picture. I ask, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Most of the time, the answer is no. And that small question instantly brings perspective. Seneca once said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." The older I get, the truer that feels. So much of our suffering comes not from what happens, but from the stories we attach to what happens. Stoicism helps you rewrite those stories, not to escape life, but to live it better. There's a kind of quiet power that comes from inner stability. When people lose their temper, you stay calm. When life surprises you, you adapt. When the world feels chaotic, you still find peace inside. That doesn't make you emotionless, it makes you free. I remember reading about Marcus Aurelius writing his meditations while leading a war, losing friends, and facing betrayal. Yet his words radiate peace, not bitterness. He never blamed life for being difficult. He simply accepted it as part of the human experience. That mindset is something modern culture rarely teaches. We're told to chase comfort, success, approval, but Stoicism teaches something deeper: to find serenity in the chaos, not to wait for it to disappear. And honestly, that's the hardest part, because the world around us celebrates reactivity. It rewards outrage, comparison, and endless distraction. The Stoic path is different. It's quiet, patient, and deeply self-aware. It's about mastering yourself instead of trying to master everything else. When I started practicing Stoicism, I expected to feel calmer. What I didn't expect was how much it would sharpen my sense of gratitude. When you stop expecting life to go your way, everything becomes a gift. A traffic jam becomes time to think. A challenge becomes training. A mistake becomes a lesson. You stop labeling moments as good or bad and start seeing them as just life. There's freedom in that. The kind of freedom no one can give or take away. I think that's why Stoic philosophy still resonates thousands of years later. It doesn't depend on culture, religion, or status. It speaks to something universal in us. The desire to live with purpose, to stay calm amid storms, and to find meaning in a world that often feels uncertain. Sometimes, when I face a difficult day, I imagine what the Stoics would say. Marcus would remind me that everything is temporary. Seneca would tell me to focus on what I can control. Epictetus would say that peace begins the moment you stop wishing things were different. Those three voices have become like inner companions, whispering through the noise of modern life. And the more I practice their wisdom, the more I realize that Stoicism isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming aware. It's not about having no emotions. It's about not being ruled by them. It's not about escaping pain. It's about learning from it. There's a quiet dignity in living this way. You stop chasing endless external validation and start building something stronger inside yourself. A stillness that doesn't depend on outcomes. A peace that can't be shaken. So if you're searching for clarity, if you're tired of being tossed around by emotion, or if you simply want to feel grounded in an unstable world, start with these 3 lessons. Practice them daily. Reflect on them deeply. Because Stoicism isn't something you learn once. It's something you live moment by moment. Remember, control what you can, release what you can't, and meet life with calm acceptance. Don't waste your energy fighting the wind. Learn to sail with it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." That single line sums up Stoicism better than anything else. When your thoughts are disciplined, your emotions become balanced, and your actions become meaningful. And when that happens, your entire life transforms. So I'll leave you with a question. Which of these 3 Stoic lessons do you think you need most right now? Controlling your reactions, freeing yourself from imagined suffering, or remembering the brevity of life? Share your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep reflections on philosophy, inner peace, and self-mastery. Remember, wisdom isn't something you find, it's something you practice. Every single day. What if I told you that your ability to control your attention is the single greatest predictor of your future happiness, success, and peace of mind? Think about it. In a world where your phone buzzes every 2 minutes, where notifications fight for your focus, where every app is designed to steal a piece of your mind, how much of your life do you truly own? The frightening truth is this. Most people are not living. They are reacting. And what they call choice is often nothing more than a habit carved into their brain by endless dopamine spikes. But here's the hidden secret. If you can master discipline, if you can reclaim your attention, you are free in ways most people will never understand. The idea of dopamine detox has become a modern buzzword. People believe that if they shut off social media for a weekend, they've fixed themselves. But the truth runs deeper. It's not about turning off your phone for 48 hours. It's about reprogramming the way your mind interacts with reward. It's about re-educating your nervous system. And for that, Stoicism, the philosophy of ancient Rome, offers something extraordinary. Stoicism was never about suppressing emotions. It was about mastery. It was about recognizing the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. And today, that wisdom is the perfect antidote to dopamine addiction. Consider this. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in the world, yet in his journals, he constantly reminded himself to remain calm, to control his impulses, to see pleasure as fleeting. Epictetus, born a slave, taught that freedom is not about chains or lack of them. It is about the mastery of one's mind. Seneca wrote that people are frugal with money but reckless with time, giving their minutes away to distractions without realizing that time is life itself. Isn't that exactly what we do with dopamine today? We hand over our attention for the cheap price of digital pleasure, not realizing that our focus is the currency of the soul. But here is where discipline enters the story. Dopamine is not evil. It is a messenger, a signal of reward. The problem is not dopamine. It is our relationship to it. Just as a Stoic does not fear external events, but rather his reaction to them, so too must we learn not to fear pleasure itself, but our dependence on it. Imagine your attention as a temple. Every notification, every scroll, every binge is graffiti on its walls. And unless you take charge, the temple collapses. But discipline, the quiet power of self-control, rebuilds it brick by brick. So what does this look like in practice? A dopamine detox is not about fleeing from the world. It's about training your mind to find satisfaction in simplicity. Instead of chasing constant novelty, you build resilience by sitting with boredom, by doing hard things without immediate rewards. Think about the Stoic practice of voluntary discomfort, sleeping on the floor, fasting, and exposing oneself to cold. Why? Not to suffer, but to build strength. To remind oneself that true contentment does not depend on luxury or stimulation. In the same way, resisting the endless pull of dopamine is not punishment. It is liberation. Let's take a deeper look. Why is your brain so addicted to stimulation in the first place? Neuroscience tells us that novelty and unpredictability are the strongest drivers of dopamine release. This is why scrolling social media feels addictive. You never know what the next post will be. It's a slot machine in your pocket. But the Stoics knew this centuries before neuroscience. They warned that chasing pleasures leads only to slavery, because you are no longer in command. You are commanded by what you chase. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If your phone controls you, if your habits dictate your day, can you honestly say you are free? Now picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning, and instead of immediately grabbing your phone, you sit in silence for 5 minutes. No noise, no stimulation, just your breath. At first, your brain rebels. It craves the quick fix. But slowly, the silence becomes powerful. That is discipline. You reclaim control not by removing dopamine from your life, but by rebalancing it, by teaching your mind that not every urge deserves action. This is where Stoicism and psychology merge. You train yourself to delay gratification, to embrace the discomfort of waiting, to discover that you don't need constant stimulation to feel alive. Here's the paradox. The less you chase pleasure, the more powerful real pleasure becomes. When you flood your brain with dopamine every second, joy becomes dull. Food tastes bland, conversations feel boring, and focus becomes impossible. But when you withdraw from the constant flood, your sensitivity returns. The Stoics understood this. They practiced simplicity so that they could fully appreciate even the smallest joys. Water tastes sweet when you're thirsty. Silence feels sacred when you've been drowning in noise. A single hour of deep focus is more rewarding than an entire day of distractions. Think of your mind like a garden. Dopamine is the rain that helps things grow. Too much rain and the garden floods. Nothing survives. Too little and the soil cracks. But discipline is the gardener, deciding when to water, when to wait, when to prune. Without the gardener, chaos rules. With the gardener, balance is restored. This is the heart of dopamine discipline. Not escape, not suppression, but balance. Stoicism teaches us that freedom lies in aligning with nature, in understanding that external things are not good or bad in themselves. It is our use of them that matters. So with dopamine, the question is not how do I avoid it, but how do I master it? And here lies the real challenge. Can you build the strength to delay gratification, to resist the impulse for immediate stimulation, and instead direct your attention where it truly matters? Can you live not as a prisoner of your urges, but as a ruler of your mind? The choice is yours. The tools are ancient. The wisdom is eternal. And the time to reclaim your attention is now. But here is where most people misunderstand dopamine detox. It's not about sitting in an empty room staring at a blank wall and refusing to touch technology for a week. That's unsustainable. What matters is consciously designing the kind of stimuli you allow into your life. It's not about zero stimulation. It's about choosing the right stimulation. Reading a book, walking in silence, journaling your thoughts. These are all forms of input, but they nourish you rather than deplete you. The goal is not to punish yourself. The goal is to regain authorship over your attention. When the Stoics faced temptations, they didn't run from life. They practiced moderation. Epictetus advised us to approach pleasure as if it were a guest at the table. Welcome it, but do not cling to it. Imagine if you treated your phone, your cravings, and your entertainment like that. Instead of being a master over you, they would simply pass through your life without dictating your actions. This is dopamine discipline in its purest form. Consider what happens when you reclaim your attention. Suddenly, the hours you used to waste scrolling become hours invested in deep work. The restless energy that used to push you toward another hit of stimulation is channeled into focus. You start reading more, thinking more clearly, and experiencing the world with sharpness rather than fog. It's not just that you're avoiding distractions, it's that you're rediscovering what undistracted life feels like. Most people haven't tasted that in years. The transformation begins small. 1 hour without your phone in the morning. 1 day per week without social media. These are not acts of deprivation. They are acts of freedom. Every time you resist the pull of shallow stimulation, you are sending a message to your brain. I am in control. This is what the Stoics called training the soul, disciplining the self. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he would be tempted, annoyed, and distracted. Yet he wrote in his meditations as a reminder, I can return to clarity whenever I choose. Now think about your own life. How often do you surrender to impulses without realizing it? That glance at your notifications, that restless check of your email, that urge to fill silence with noise. Each of these is a micro-decision shaping the architecture of your mind. The discipline of dopamine is about reversing this flow. Instead of being led by impulse, you guide your impulses. Instead of chasing every shiny distraction, you decide what is worthy of your energy. And when you fail, and you will, you return with patience. The Stoics knew failure wasn't weakness. It was part of the path of mastery. There's also a deeper spiritual layer to all of this. Every time you reclaim your attention, you are reconnecting with the present moment. You are no longer scattering your energy outward into endless consumption. You are drawing it inward, toward clarity, toward meaning. The ancient philosophers understood that freedom is not just external, it's internal. What uses it to live in a free society if your mind is enslaved to impulses? True sovereignty is self-mastery, and dopamine discipline is one of the most practical doorways into that sovereignty. Imagine waking up tomorrow and not reaching for your phone first thing. Imagine sitting with your coffee in silence, watching the light shift through your window. Imagine walking without headphones, allowing your thoughts to settle, hearing the rhythm of your own breath. These moments may seem small, but they are revolutionary. They are rebellions against a culture designed to fracture your attention. They are acts of remembering that your life is more than just endless scrolling, endless chasing, and endless stimulation. They are acts of remembering that you are here, alive, conscious. And this is where Stoicism gives us hope. It tells us that no matter how distracted we have been, no matter how addicted to stimulation, no matter how scattered our focus, we can begin again. Discipline is not a punishment. It is a form of love. Love for your future self. Love for the clarity you deserve. Love for the peace that waits behind the noise. The philosophers didn't have smartphones, but they wrestled with the same inner restlessness. the same pull of desire. And their wisdom endures because it speaks to the human condition that never changes. So, the question is not whether dopamine detox works. The question is whether you are willing to reclaim your attention with discipline, patience, and courage. The world will never stop throwing distractions at you, but you can stop taking the bait. You can decide, here and now, to live with focus, intention, and sovereignty. You can train your mind to value depth over speed, clarity over noise, discipline over impulse. And in doing so, you may just discover the stillness you've been searching for all along. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried a dopamine detox? And if so, what was your experience? Did you feel calmer, or did the silence feel unbearable? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to know how this journey has unfolded for you. And if this video gave you a glimpse of something worth practicing, remember this: your attention is your life. Guard it fiercely. Choose wisely where you place it. Discipline your impulses not because you want less life, but because you want more of it. The Stoics knew this. And now, so do you. If you found this message valuable, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more reflections on psychology, philosophy, and self-mastery. Your future self will thank you.
Have you ever felt like your emotions control you more than you control them? One moment, you're calm. The next, a single word, a small setback, or even your inner critic sends you spiraling. We live in a world that glorifies control over everything external: money, status, relationships, but neglects the one thing that truly determines our peace: the control of our inner life. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. They understood that no matter how chaotic the world becomes, the mind can remain unshaken, like a fortress. Today, I want to share with you 10 life-changing Stoic lessons that can transform the way you experience emotions and give you a kind of control that no circumstance can ever take away. The first lesson is radical acceptance of what you cannot control. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. Think about the last time you felt frustrated. Was it the situation that caused the storm inside you, or was it your expectation of how things should have been? The Stoic shift is this: instead of fighting reality, embrace it. By learning to say, "This is beyond me, but my reaction is within me," you stop wasting energy on resistance and redirect it into resilience. Acceptance is not passive. It is the most active form of wisdom because it frees your mind from battles you can never win and arms you for the battles that truly matter, those within yourself. The second lesson is the art of voluntary discomfort. Epictetus reminded his students to practice hardship before it strikes. Why? Because the one who only seeks comfort is enslaved by it, but the one who can endure discomfort becomes free. Try this. Skip a meal, sleep on the floor, take a cold shower. In those moments, notice the fear of discomfort dissolve, and what remains is strength. When life inevitably throws real pain your way, you will not crumble, because you have already rehearsed the art of standing firm. By training yourself in small doses of discomfort, you teach your mind that fear and craving do not dictate your emotions. You do. The third lesson is to pause before reacting. Seneca warned that anger is a form of temporary madness. How many relationships have been destroyed? How many regrets born because someone acted before they thought? The Stoic practice is simple. Create space. When the emotion rises, instead of reacting instantly, step back and observe it like a passing storm. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Will my reaction matter in an hour, in a day, in a year? Most storms dissolve before they ever need to reach the shore. Mastery of this pause gives you mastery over your emotional life. The fourth lesson is the power of perspective. Imagine you're looking at your life through the eyes of eternity. The Stoics often practiced what's called the view from above. Close your eyes and see yourself from a higher vantage point, your city, your country, your planet spinning in the vast cosmos. Suddenly, the thing that made you anxious shrinks to nothing. That argument, that traffic jam, that rejection, it loses its grip on you because you realize how small it truly is. Perspective transforms emotional turbulence into clarity, reminding you that most of what disturbs you is not worth the weight you give it. The fifth lesson is to remember mortality. Memento mori, the reminder that you will die, was not meant to depress but to liberate. Every frustration, every anger, every petty worry collapses when you realize time is short. Why waste it in resentment or self-pity? The Stoics saw death as the ultimate teacher of emotional discipline. By holding mortality in mind, you sharpen your focus on what truly matters and release the grip of what doesn't. When you live as though each day could be your last, you stop giving power to emotions that drain your spirit and start nurturing the ones that give life meaning, gratitude, love, and courage. The sixth lesson is detachment from outcomes. We often confuse success with control, believing that if we just work hard enough, manipulate enough variables, we can force life to bend to our will. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Your role is action, not outcome. Epictetus said, "Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do." Imagine the relief when you understand that your emotional state does not need to depend on how the world responds to you. You control effort, intention, and virtue. The rest is in the hands of fate. This detachment creates emotional freedom because no disappointment can enslave the mind that never demanded a guarantee. The seventh lesson is to use reason as a guide, not emotion. Emotions are powerful messengers, but disastrous rulers. The Stoics believed reason was the light that cut through the fog of impulse. Ask yourself, what story is my emotion telling me? Is it true? If it is anger, perhaps it points to injustice, but must I become unjust myself in response? If it is fear, perhaps it warns of risk, but must I shrink when courage is required? When you put emotions before the court of reason, you separate signal from noise, and clarity takes the place of chaos. The eighth lesson is self-reflection at the end of each day. Marcus Aurelius would write in his journal at night, examining his actions, thoughts, and emotions. This daily review is like cleaning your soul before rest. Did I let anger control me? Did I let fear silence me? Did I live according to my values? By reflecting, you transform mistakes into teachers and progress into fuel. Without reflection, you stumble blind. With reflection, every day becomes an opportunity for emotional mastery. The ninth lesson is compassion for others. You may ask, how does compassion control my emotions? The Stoics saw that resentment and hatred poison the one who holds them more than the one they target. By understanding that others act from ignorance, fear, or their wounds, you free yourself from unnecessary emotional battles. Compassion does not mean weakness. It means refusing to let another's behavior dictate your peace. To forgive is not to excuse. It is to reclaim sovereignty over your emotional landscape. And the 10th lesson, perhaps the most powerful, is to live by nature. The Stoics believed that harmony comes from aligning your life with the natural order. What is natural for humans? to reason, to connect, to live with virtue. Every emotion that pulls you away from this, envy, greed, rage, disturbs your inner balance. But when you live with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, your emotions begin to align with your higher self. Instead of being tossed by the waves of desire and fear, you sail steadily, guided by a compass that never fails. These 10 lessons are not abstract philosophy. They are weapons, shields, and tools you can use in daily life. When practiced, they don't eliminate emotion, they refine it, channel it, and place it under your command. And the reward is a kind of freedom so rare in this world. The freedom to feel deeply without being enslaved. The freedom to live fully without being consumed. Think about it. How different would your days feel if you no longer let anger control your voice, if anxiety no longer chained your decisions, if sadness no longer robbed you of perspective? Imagine standing in the middle of life's storms with a calm mind, steady breath, and unshaken clarity. This is not indifference. It is a strength. The Stoics never told us to suppress our emotions. They taught us to master them, to become sculptors of our souls rather than prisoners of impulse. The world often rewards emotional chaos. Outrage spreads faster than reason. Fear is more profitable than peace. Envy drives entire economies. But here lies your secret weapon. By embracing Stoic wisdom, you rise above the noise. You stop being a pawn in the game of manipulation and reclaim the power to choose your state of mind. Emotional control is not about dulling your humanity. It is about sharpening it. You do not feel less. You feel with greater depth, precision, and purpose. Think of Marcus Aurelius, an emperor burdened with wars, betrayals, and constant pressure. Yet in his journals, he wrote not of bitterness, but of patience, humility, and gratitude. He faced the same chaos we do, just magnified 1,000 times, and still chose inner peace. If he could find calm in the heart of an empire, can we not find it in the chaos of traffic, deadlines, or criticism? Think of Epictetus, born a slave, beaten and humiliated, yet he discovered freedom where his oppressors could not touch it, in the mastery of his mind. His body could be bound, but his emotions, his reason, his inner self untouchable. And isn't that the greatest revolution? To refuse to be conquered by what lies outside of you. Now consider yourself. How many times have you given away your peace for free? Someone cuts you off in traffic, and suddenly your entire day is poisoned. A coworker criticizes you, and for hours you replay their words in your head, drowning in self-doubt. A small failure, and you spiral into shame. But here's the truth. No one can take your peace unless you hand it over. No one can make you feel inferior, small, or broken unless you surrender your authority to them. Stoicism hands that authority back to you, and yet, do not think it comes overnight. These 10 lessons are like seeds. You plant them through practice, through journaling, through moments of reflection. Some days you will stumble. Some days anger will win, or fear will whisper louder than reason. That is part of the journey. The Stoics remind us progress, not perfection. Each time you return to your principles, you strengthen them, until one day you realize your emotions no longer control you. You control them. Here is the paradox. When you learn to command your emotions, you unlock deeper connections with others. You become more compassionate because you are no longer blinded by rage. You become more confident because you are no longer enslaved by doubt. You become more loving because your love is no longer tangled with fear. Emotional control is not a wall that keeps people out. It is a foundation that allows you to open without collapsing. So I ask you, which of these lessons spoke to you the most today? Was it the power of accepting what you cannot change, the strength of building inner fortresses, the freedom of letting go of resentment, or the clarity of living with virtue? Share your answer in the comments. I would love to hear how you plan to use Stoic wisdom in your own life. And as you reflect, remember this: you are not broken because you feel deeply. You are only broken when you let those feelings rule you. The Stoics teach us that emotions are not enemies, but energy, raw, untamed, waiting for direction. When you learn to channel them, sadness becomes compassion, anger becomes courage, fear becomes wisdom. You are not meant to erase emotion. You are meant to transmute it. The final choice is yours. You can remain a slave to impulse, forever reacting, forever tossed around by circumstances. Or you can step onto the Stoic path, sharpen your mind, strengthen your heart, and live with the kind of power no storm can destroy. So take these lessons with you. Apply them in your next moment of conflict, your next wave of fear, your next spark of envy. Watch how they transform not just your emotions, but your entire life. Because true freedom does not come from changing the world. It comes from mastering yourself. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more wisdom that strengthens the mind and frees the soul. Your journey toward emotional mastery has already begun. Now keep walking it with courage.
Fear. It hides in the corners of your mind, shaping the way you walk through life, dictating choices you don't even realize you're making. Fear is not just a passing emotion. It is one of the most powerful forces that govern human existence. But what if I told you that fear is less about danger and more about control? What if fear is not your enemy, but a mirror, revealing something essential about who you are and how you live? From the earliest days of humanity, fear kept us alive. The rustle in the bushes, the shadow in the dark, the sudden movement at the edge of your vision. Fear was the signal that told your ancestors to run, to fight, to survive. It was nature's alarm system, always prepared to sacrifice comfort for the sake of life itself. Yet as civilization evolved, the threats of predators faded, and the dangers of the natural world became less immediate. But fear didn't vanish. Instead, it adapted, shifting from the physical to the psychological. No longer do most of us fear lions in the night. Instead, we fear rejection, failure, humiliation, and death. Fear has woven itself into the very fabric of our inner world. Philosophers have long recognized that fear is more than a biological reflex. It is a lens through which we interpret existence itself. Epictetus, the ancient Greek philosopher, believed that much of human misery stemmed from two fears, the fear of death and the fear of the gods. By learning to understand and dismantle these fears, he thought we could live more freely. And centuries later, Soren Kierkegaard would take this idea further, arguing that anxiety and fear are not simply obstacles, but doorways to deeper understanding. Fear, in his view, is not just what holds us back. It is also what awakens us to freedom. But let's pause here. Think about your own life. How many decisions have you made not because you truly wanted them, but because you were afraid of the alternative? You stayed in a job you hated because you feared instability. You avoided telling the truth to someone you loved because you feared rejection. You kept silent when you wanted to speak because you feared being judged. Fear whispers in your ear and convinces you that comfort is safety, when in reality, comfort often keeps you imprisoned. Modern psychology echoes these insights. Fear activates the amygdala, flooding the body with adrenaline, tightening muscles, and sharpening focus. This is useful when a car swerves toward you on the highway, but less useful when you're about to give a presentation or when you're considering whether to pursue your true calling. Fear does not distinguish between survival and self-expression. To your brain, they both feel like life or death battles. This is why fear becomes a hidden ruler of human life. Most people are not aware of how much fear shapes their destiny. On the surface, you may say you want success, love, happiness, or freedom. But beneath that surface, fear quietly dictates what you allow yourself to pursue. Fear becomes the silent architect of your reality, placing invisible boundaries around your potential. Consider the world around you. Entire societies are built on the manipulation of fear. Politicians use fear to gain power, painting threats of enemies both real and imagined. Media thrives on fear, knowing that a fearful mind pays more attention, clicks more often, and stays more engaged. Even religions throughout history have used fear of punishment or damnation as tools of control. Fear is not only personal, it is collective, shaping civilizations as much as it shapes individuals. Yet within this apparent darkness lies a paradox. Fear is not only destructive, it is also revealing. The things you fear most often point to what you value most deeply. If you fear losing your family, it shows how much you love them. If you fear failure, it shows how much you long for achievement. Fear, when examined carefully, becomes a compass pointing toward meaning. It forces you to confront the truth about what truly matters to you. This is why so many philosophers, mystics, and spiritual teachers did not teach us to simply eliminate fear, but to transform our relationship with it. Stoics like Seneca argued that we must train the mind to face fear rationally, recognizing that most of what we dread never comes to pass. The Buddha taught that fear is born from attachment, and that liberation comes from releasing our desperate clinging. Even modern thinkers suggest that fear is not a problem to be eradicated, but a signal to be understood. Imagine for a moment that fear is not an enemy chasing you, but a teacher guiding you. Imagine that every time fear arises, it is asking you a question. What is it that you truly value, and what are you willing to risk for it? Instead of running from fear, what if you leaned closer, listened carefully, and allowed it to show you the path you're meant to take? Fear's greatest trick is making you believe that safety lies in avoidance. But true safety, if it exists at all, lies in courage, the willingness to act even when fear is present. The force that controls you can also be the force that awakens you. To understand fear's hold on us, we need to recognize how deeply it intertwines with freedom. Kierkegaard described this paradox clearly. He said that anxiety, which is closely related to fear, is the dizziness of freedom. When we stand before endless possibilities, our minds tremble at the weight of choice. Freedom is exhilarating, but it is also terrifying. Fear is not just the shadow of death, it is the shadow of life itself, reminding us of how much responsibility lies in our own hands. Think about it. Why do so many of us choose the familiar over the unknown, even when the familiar makes us miserable? It's because the unknown provokes fear. The mind would rather cling to what it knows than face the abyss of uncertainty. Yet in doing so, we chain ourselves. Fear creates the illusion that the prison of the known is safer than the freedom of the unknown. Nietzsche pushed this idea further. He argued that fear is what keeps us from fully embracing life. He saw how people often build systems, moral, religious, or political, to shield themselves from fear. They invent comforting illusions so they don't have to confront the raw chaos of existence. But Nietzsche challenged us to move beyond fear, to face life without illusions, and to create meaning even in the face of uncertainty. In his eyes, true strength comes from staring fear in the face and saying yes to life anyway. But how do we, ordinary people, live this truth in daily life? Consider how fear operates in small but powerful ways. You want to start a new project, but the fear of failure stops you. You want to express your feelings to someone, but the fear of rejection ties your tongue. You want to step into the unknown, but fear convinces you to wait, to delay, to postpone. And later never comes. Fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. And in those whispers, entire lives are shaped. The irony is that by obeying fear, we rarely achieve the safety it promises. You avoid speaking your truth to protect yourself from rejection, but the silence eats away at your soul. You avoid risk to protect yourself from failure, but the regret becomes heavier than failure ever could. Fear tricks us into trading the pain of growth for the pain of stagnation, and the latter is always the more suffocating of the two. Modern science shows that fear can even reshape our biology. Chronic fear, whether from stress, trauma, or constant anxiety, changes the brain's pathways. It heightens reactivity, lowers resilience, and traps us in cycles of avoidance. This is why many people live half-lives, never fully present, never fully alive, because fear has become their silent master. But if fear is so powerful, what can we do about it? The answer is not to destroy fear. It is to reframe it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act while fear still lingers in your chest. The Stoics trained themselves daily to imagine loss, pain, and death, not to be pessimistic, but to make fear lose its grip. By rehearsing the worst, they robbed fear of its power to paralyze. Likewise, mindfulness traditions encourage us to sit with fear, to breathe into it, to observe it without judgment. In doing so, we learn that fear is not an enemy. It is an energy that can be harnessed. Look at the great stories of human culture. Heroes are not defined by the absence of fear. They are defined by their willingness to walk forward despite it. Frodo carries the ring, even though he fears the journey. Harry Potter walks into the forest knowing he might die. Neo chooses the red pill despite the terror of uncertainty. These stories endure because they mirror our own lives. We, too, must decide whether to let fear define us or to step forward into our own unknown. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: fear exposes truth. Fear reveals where your growth lies. The thing you fear most is often the exact place you must go if you want to evolve. If you fear speaking, then your voice is your path. If you fear love, then intimacy is your lesson. If you fear failure, then risk is your teacher. Fear is the map to transformation, but only if you are willing to follow it. So ask yourself, what has fear kept you from doing? What dream, what truth, what action have you postponed because the force of fear convinced you to wait? Life does not wait. Time does not pause until you feel ready. Fear will always be there. The question is, will you let it stop you, or will you let it sharpen you? The philosophers were right. Fear is a secret force that controls us. But they also knew something else. Fear is the doorway to wisdom. Every time you step into fear, you expand your life. Every time you face it, you reclaim your freedom. You cannot eliminate fear, but you can walk with it, side by side, until it no longer commands you. So let me leave you with this. What is the fear that controls you most right now? And what would your life look like if you refused to obey it? Share your answer in the comments. I'd love to know. And if this video has given you something to think about, remember to like it and subscribe for more explorations into the depths of philosophy, psychology, and the hidden forces that shape our lives. Have you ever wondered why some people seem unshakable, calm, and in control, even when chaos surrounds them? Why do some individuals easily navigate life, while others crumble under pressure? What if I told you that the secret isn't talent, luck, or circumstances, but a mindset rooted in ancient wisdom that's more relevant today than ever? Today, I will share with you 9 Stoic rules for a better life, translated into modern language, so you can start applying them right now. Stick with me, because this isn't just philosophy. It's a guide to actually living better, smarter, and calmer in a world that's constantly testing you. Rule number 1. Focus only on what you can control. Imagine your life as a ship at sea. The waves, the wind, the storms, most of it is beyond your command. You can't control other people, global events, or unexpected setbacks. What you can control is how you steer your ship, your thoughts, your actions, your choices. When you obsess over things outside your control, you're handing over your peace of mind to forces you can't manage. Instead, train yourself to identify what's yours to influence and let the rest roll off like water on a duck's back. This simple practice reduces stress, increases clarity, and makes you unshakable in ways most people never experience. Rule number 2. Anticipate challenges before they happen. The Stoics called this Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Don't be afraid to imagine the worst-case scenario. Think about what could go wrong today, this week, or this month, and plan for it. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. By facing potential obstacles in your mind first, you reduce their power to surprise and overwhelm you. You'll notice a strange shift. When bad things do happen, you don't panic, you act. Life becomes less of a series of shocks and more of a challenge you're ready to meet head-on. Rule number 3. Practice self-discipline. This is where modern life trips most people up. We live in a world of instant gratification, notifications, endless scrolling, fast food, and easy distractions. But true freedom comes from discipline. Discipline isn't about punishment. It's about choosing the long-term benefit over the short-term comfort. When you resist the urge to give in to every impulse, you strengthen your mind, your will, and your sense of self-worth. It's not glamorous, but it's powerful. The more control you have over yourself, the less anyone or anything else can control you. Rule number 4. Embrace discomfort. Life is uncomfortable. Pain, failure, rejection, and loss are inevitable. Most people spend their lives avoiding discomfort at all costs, which is exactly why it controls them. The Stoics taught that growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone. Whether it's exercising, working on a tough project, having an uncomfortable conversation, or confronting your fears, leaning into discomfort builds resilience, courage, and character. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding today that could make me stronger tomorrow? Rule number 5. Separate opinion from reality. So often, we suffer not because of what happens, but because of what we think about what happens. Someone criticizes you, and your mind explodes with anger or shame. But consider this. The criticism itself is neutral. It's your judgment that gives it power. Stoicism teaches that you have the freedom to interpret events however you choose. By mastering your perspective, you master your emotions. You can't control the world, but you can control how the world touches you. That's freedom. Rule number 6. Value virtue over external success. In our society, success is measured by money, status, likes, or awards. But the Stoics remind us that none of this is truly under our control, and none of it guarantees happiness. What matters is your character, your honesty, integrity, courage, and wisdom. When you prioritize being a good person over looking successful, you stop chasing illusions and start building a life of substance. True respect, fulfillment, and inner peace come from virtue, not validation. Rule number 7. Practice gratitude. Modern life conditions us to focus on what we don't have. The promotion we missed, the relationship that ended, the gadget we can't afford. The Stoics knew that gratitude rewires the mind. Every day, notice what's working in your life, even if it's small. Gratitude doesn't ignore problems. It highlights abundance amid struggle. By focusing on what's already present, you experience contentment, and paradoxically, that contentment drives you to pursue growth without desperation or anxiety. Rule number 8. Don't fear death or loss. This one sounds dark, but it's liberating. The Stoics teach that everything in life is temporary, including our time and possessions. Instead of fearing the inevitable, accept it. When you embrace the impermanence of life, you stop clinging to what can't stay, and you begin to appreciate what's here right now. This mindset makes you bolder, freer, and more alive, because you're not paralyzed by fear of losing what you can't keep. Rule number 9. Live in alignment with nature and reason. At first, this might sound abstract, but in practical terms, it means understanding your purpose, acting rationally, and respecting the natural order of life. Don't fight reality. Don't live in constant rebellion against what is. Instead, find your place in the world, make decisions guided by reason, and harmonize your actions with the flow of life. You'll experience a sense of calm and meaning that chaos, distraction, and shallow pleasures can never give you. These 9 rules may sound simple, but living by them is a daily practice, a mental workout, and a transformation in the way you experience the world. Now that you understand the 9 Stoic rules, let's bring them to life in modern scenarios so you can start using them immediately. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. Most people would fume, honk, stress, and let their emotions take control. But a Stoic sees it differently. Traffic isn't personal. It isn't meant to ruin your day. It's outside your control. You can control your response. Stay calm, listen to a podcast, breathe, and turn the delay into a productive or reflective moment. That shift in perspective transforms a daily frustration into an opportunity to practice patience, self-discipline, and presence. Think about social media. How often do we scroll endlessly, comparing ourselves to others, feeling inadequate, jealous, or anxious? The Stoics teach detachment from external validation. Instead of obsessing over likes, followers, or comments, focus on improving yourself and acting according to your values. You can still enjoy social media, but it doesn't control your mood or define your worth. That's modern Stoicism in action, turning every interaction into a chance to exercise emotional mastery. Let's talk about setbacks. You applied for a promotion, a new client rejected you, or a relationship ended. Naturally, your mind wants to spiral into disappointment or self-pity. But the Stoic approach is radical yet simple. Accept what happened, analyze what's within your control to improve, and move forward. Failure becomes a teacher, not a jailer. You start seeing challenges as stepping stones rather than roadblocks. Over time, life feels less like a random series of blows and more like a series of lessons you are fully equipped to navigate. Discomfort, the 4th rule, also has practical applications today. Think about your health. Exercise is uncomfortable, but it strengthens your body and mind. Difficult conversations at work or home. Uncomfortable, but they build courage and honesty. Skipping the easy, comfortable path leads to a deeper, richer experience of life. Modern life tempts you to avoid struggle, but embracing discomfort gives you an advantage: physical, mental, and emotional. Another Stoic tool is perspective. When someone insults you online, criticizes your work, or even treats you unfairly, ask yourself, is this their opinion, or is it a reflection of reality? Most often, it's just an interpretation, not an absolute truth. Choosing your own perspective reduces emotional suffering and allows you to respond calmly, strategically, and with dignity. You're no longer a puppet of circumstances. You're the author of your reactions. Gratitude and virtue combine to reshape your priorities. In practice, this could mean starting each day by listing what you're grateful for, or ending it by reflecting on whether your actions reflected integrity, courage, and kindness. Over time, these habits shift your internal compass. You stop chasing superficial rewards and start creating meaningful, sustainable satisfaction. Life becomes less stressful and far more rewarding. Acceptance of death and impermanence might feel morbid, but it's liberating in daily life. Missed an opportunity? Lost a job? A friendship ended? Instead of clinging, acknowledge the impermanence of all things. This mindset allows you to appreciate moments, relationships, and experiences fully, without fear or attachment. You learn to live intentionally, savoring the present rather than fearing loss. Finally, living in alignment with nature and reason reminds us to act intentionally and thoughtfully. In a world that rewards impulsive reactions, being deliberate is revolutionary. Set goals, plan actions, and make decisions consistent with your values. When chaos arises, and it will, you navigate with clarity instead of panic. You become resilient not by avoiding life's storms, but by sailing through them with competence and grace. The beauty of these 9 Stoic rules is that they aren't theoretical, they are entirely actionable. Start small. Tomorrow, identify one thing outside your control and let it go. Reflect on one discomfort and lean into it instead of avoiding it. Express gratitude at least once today, and notice how your perspective shifts. Over weeks and months, these small practices compound into a massive internal transformation. You'll notice your emotions stabilizing, your focus sharpening, and your confidence rising. I want to leave you with a challenge. Which of these 9 rules could change your life the most if you applied them starting today? Could you let go of control over what isn't yours? Could you face discomfort instead of avoiding it? Could you live more in alignment with reason and virtue? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below sharing which Stoic practice resonates with you and how you plan to apply it. Your insight might inspire someone else in this community. Remember, true strength, calm, and fulfillment aren't found in external achievements. They are cultivated within your mind and your character. Every time you practice self-discipline, embrace discomfort, or let go of what you cannot control, you are building a life of freedom and resilience. Life is unpredictable, but your inner fortress can remain unshaken. Keep practicing, keep reflecting, and let Stoic wisdom guide you to a life of clarity, courage, and peace. If this video gave you a new perspective or sparked an idea about how to live better, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe so you never miss content that helps you grow mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Your journey toward a calmer, stronger, and more purposeful life starts today, one thought, one action, and one choice at a time.